I'm just going to say the product that we use because it's a big issue for me. And this is part 2 of a study that we hope to go 3 or 4 years with, primarily funded by the Raspberry Commission, if I'm correct. Is that correct? Oh, there's a whole bunch of people. All right, it's a task project. Okay. You can see I don't take care of that part. I just try to get the data. Okay, here we go. So, wonderful. Okay, there we go. All right. This tells you about how we set this up. Usually the treatments are in 3 replicates or 4 replicates. This year, I think we went 4 replicates also in Washington. And we try to pull berries right after we spray, as soon as it dries. And then we go up to 21 days. In Washington, it's an over-row boom, and in Oregon, it's a backpack sprayer. We send all this analysis down to Synergistic Pesticide Laboratory, and Camille Holliday will also be talking about some of the newer things at the end of this presentation. I'm going to run past this stuff really fast here. Okay, this is the list of the insecticides and miticides that we looked at, and there's 15 active ingredients in all this. I'm going to start with Bifenthrin because I feel that's kind of the first one that people usually spray on raspberries, hopefully. Notice if this is being sprayed prior to harvest, generally it's fairly safe to do that. The only time we saw something weird was in blackberries down in Oregon. Most of the times it's below the level of 1, that's the US, and then it's a 3-day PHI. Next one, good old Malathion, no problems whatsoever. The only problems might be if you're shipping it to certain countries. They have different tolerances than we do here in the United States. US and Canada are the same. You'll see that there's data here for 17 and 18 all mixed. And we didn't see any really crazy things going on with Malathion. It drops really fast. Mustang Max is the next one. And again, if you're looking at a 0.8 tolerance on day 1, there doesn't seem to be anything that's in anything that's really close to that. There is a lot of restrictions as to where you can ship if you use this product, depending on when you harvest. And this is Intrepid, which probably isn't used that much unless you're going after leps. And it's going to be probably prior to harvest, although some people might use it. It has very much restricted every place except Canada and the US. But notice 6 is way above the scale on the vertical scale. Danitol is another pyrethroid, which not a lot of people use, but it has a very high limit up there at 12, and notice it really drops off on all different, both years. It was quite well below any problems. There are some restrictions in certain countries, but most countries, this would be a safe product to use, especially at 3 PHI. The neonics, both imidacloprid and the next one, thiamethoxam, both fall way below the US tolerance. But my little take-home message would be that being the public, being who they are, and doing all the reading that they do about certain things, neonics may be looked at differently in the coming years. So we should be careful how we use these and when we use them. New products coming up. This is one from DuPont. that is registered on blueberries and just, I believe, got its registration on raspberries, red raspberries. We assume that it's going to have about a 3-day PHI, and more than likely will have about a 4 parts per million requirement, which is again above the scale. So it looks like it would be probably a very safe product. Although I hear from growers that, you know, they don't want to put too much money into this one. It depends on what animal you're trying to kill. The Spinosad or Spiridium, these products, again, look like they're extremely safe. There are restrictions in certain countries. 1 DAT there falls way below the tolerance for the US and Canada. Success, again, for 1 day is below. And I think that's true. The only problem would be Canada down there at 0.5. There might be a problem. So again, you have to be very careful on what you're doing and where you're sending stuff and what product you're using. When we get to miticides, one of the ones that's used most here, it's either in the banner or acromite, which I believe is going to be taken by the same company pretty soon. It seems to be doing pretty well, although it was very, very close, except especially for 1 DAT. But when do you use miticides? For caneberries, most miticides are post-harvest, so there probably isn't going to be a problem there. Bev will go into some other things about this product in her talk. Be sure to come and stay or whatever. Okay. The last one is a new product which is coming out by Gowan, and it's a older ingredients, but it's a newer product. And we've been playing with this one a little bit, and at the 3 PHI, it gets close from time to time, depending on the year. But again, this is a product that can only be used once a year. And in most of our other tests that we've had, it seems to do as well as some other products, okay? And it, again, is going to most likely be post-harvest, so I don't see it being a real problem. Now, the fungicides. There's only 18 of these slides to go through, so stay with me. What we find generally overall is most of these are way below the scale. Notice 5 is way at the top. I didn't put the yellow line in there. Sorry about that. Maybe it'll come up. Nope. This one, 10, way above the scale. Notice most of these are really dropping off very fast. There are some restrictions in certain countries, but most of the time you're going to be well within the area, especially even at 0 post-harvest interval. Captan, a very old product, which has been around almost as long as I have, looks like there's some close lines, but not really. The restrictions are really as to where you can market your product if you have Captan on it. Here, the 4 is clear above the scale. If I knew how to use the pointer, it's way up in here somewhere, okay? Switch at 1, again, for US is 10. The vertical scale is only at 6. At 0, again, 10, it's way off the scale. At 1, it's 20 is the scale. Even for most of all the other countries, the 5 is way up. It's below the 5. The only problem would be Taiwan. Here, again, 5 is off the scale. Most of the countries, no problem except China. I don't hear that phone, okay? I know who you are, though, okay? It's one demerit. Here we're looking at a newer product, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, about, what, 2-3 years old? Is that right? I can't remember. Has it been around? Okay, okay. Well, fungicides are not my, you know. So again, the scale at 5, and we only go up to 3.5 on there. So most of these are dropping really quickly. There are some restrictions in certain countries, but even on the ones that have the lower numbers, you're going to be fine. It's 0. Okay, Rovenel, it's 0. We're up at 15, and in Canada it's 25. So the chances of having any problems probably very low. This one, I think, you know, because of the PHI it's 7, you have to kind of use your head, and there seems to be many more restrictions in other countries. Canada and US, you're going to be fine using this product if you're planning on harvesting 7 days after you put it on. Raleigh at 0. Again, it's 2, and the scale is going up at 1.2, so way down. One of the active ingredients in Pristine, 0. Again, 4. There's a 4 there, but these are nearly half of what the problem would be. There are some problems maybe with certain countries, so you have to watch that. Here's the other part of Luna Tranquility at 0. We're looking at 15 and 15 at Canada and US, and we're about half at the 0 DAT. So my take-home message is right here. Look at the PHIs that you're using. Make sure your gallonage per acre is what you set it at. I hate to say this, but if you lower the amount of water and you put in the same amount of ingredients for an acre, what is that doing to your ppms? Okay? It doesn't mean that you're putting more product over that acre. It just means that it may be slightly more concentrated. Now, whether that would screw things up, it depends on how the samples are taken, okay? The other thing is make sure you're looking at your rates. Talk to your farm advisors about rates. Sometimes you can get by with half rate and still do a very good job. Also, what kind of weather? Rain, wind, smoke, sunshine, these all affect this. So use your head, plan where your fruit's gonna go to market, when it's gonna go to market, and what products you're gonna use to control what. I'm finished. Any questions for that part of it? Anything? We'll take questions again. Yes, sir.
Resistant?
It depends on the product. Talk to your farm advisors about this. Certain products can be used at lower rates, all right? That's why the label has, oh, I'm sorry. That's why the label has a variation in rates. Some do, some do not. So you have to be very careful. Also, how many times you can use that product. You can only use so much of that product per season. So make sure you're doing that too.
So you're saying we shouldn't go off the label?
No, no. Yes. If I say that, then I lose my job, okay? And I would like to keep it for one more year.
Hollis, I just had a quick question. What was the yellow that you had highlighted on your right-hand tables? Those rows.
In the little tables, the yellow was basically saying these are the countries where you may really look hard to make sure that your product is going to make that low MRL. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. And there's only what, 2 big sheets about this big with all these products on it, you know, and you can go crazy looking at it because I have been looking at it for what, 3 days, put this talk together, and I'm semi crazy right now. I believe it can only be done yearly, okay? But we, you know, the different commissions try to keep up on that, and there are reports. Now, we're losing some of our people in certain places that put these beautiful tables together. So, yeah, it's going to be up to the growers to go find these tables and check them out. I don't know if the USDA actually puts one together. I think they do, don't they? Okay. Yeah, yeah. So it does change from year to year, because that's one of the things I've been doing is looking at the upgrades in some of these over last year.
To go to the next slide, but just
Press down. Okay.
Hi, I'm Camille Holliday, and I am the owner with my husband. We own Synergistic Pesticide Lab in Portland, Oregon. We specialize in pesticide residue analysis for over 10 years now, and we're ISO 17025 accredited. We're constantly looking to improve our methodology in the lab. All of our work is done by mass spectrometry, which should minimize false positives and false negatives. Most pesticide residues in food are analyzed using standardized methods, both here in the US and overseas, and we use the same internationally recognized methodology to do these research projects as we do for our export and global gap samples. But unfortunately, not all analytes work in this standardized method, and one good example of that is polyoxin D, which I believe has a trade name of OSO or PhD. So that was one of the fungicides that was proposed to be in the 2018 trial and was actually applied in the field, but we found back in the lab that it didn't work in the standardized method. So we tried a few different experiments in the lab, but we were unsuccessful getting that online. We reached out to the registrant, and they were actually very helpful and provided us with full access to their methodology, which we reviewed. And when we did so, we found that it would be extremely expensive and extremely time consuming. So we ultimately dropped polyoxin D from this year's trial for 2 reasons. One, if it's that much of a specialized method and that expensive, then other countries probably aren't performing that method either. And 2, we did a review of the MRLs in other countries, and we found that it was exempt for the most part. So it's kind of a moot point at that point. But we did get several other analytes successfully online for 2018. And you know, this is just 1 year's data, so I'd caution you on making any strong conclusions off of this. We definitely have at least 1 more year to go to add to this. So this is one of the insecticides, the new insecticides that we looked at. And so as Hollis was explaining, that chart over there to the right are the MRLs. So this has a US tolerance of 5, both in the red raspberries and the blackberries. And you can see, oh, there's my cursor. So we're far below the tolerance at that time. And let's see here. So I believe this has a PHI of 0 day. So, oh, there he goes. Okay, so we have a 0 day PHI. So you can see at that PHI, we're well below that tolerance of 5. Canada also has MRLs of 5. But because this is a newer chemistry, many other countries either don't have MRLs set for that, or you could see, you know, 1.5 for the EU and Korea. At that day 0, we have at least 2 detections above that. So you'd want to be cautious and, you know, give a little bit more time if you're using this chemistry. So then there were 2 miticides that we got online for 2018, one of which being acequinasol. And again, you could see that we're well below the tolerance of 4. And so let's see. There's my little arrow with the 1 day PHI here. So, you know, there are some issues getting into these other countries using this miticide. Another miticide we looked at was the sphingobutatin oxide, and Hollis tells me this is an older chemistry with a 3 day PHI. So we're well below the the US tolerance of 10 for red raspberries, but as you can see, this is not currently registered for blackberries, and so therefore there are 0 tolerances or MRLs for that. We also were able to add 3 new fungicides this year. The first of which being penthiopyrad, and this is not currently registered for caneberries. I believe it has in caneberries, blueberries, and strawberries will be getting registered in 2019, if I'm not mistaken. So that should be coming down the pike, but unfortunately we don't really have that MRL data to compare it to at this time. But ultimately we will have MRLs, and so we have at least 1 year of data, and in the future we'll be able to use this information to make recommendations. Another not yet registered fungicide is this pidiflumetaphin. And so we also don't have the PHI information for this either. But you can see that the residues, even starting out, are pretty low. And that may be based on the application rate for this fungicide. And then the final fungicide that we were able to add for the 2018 year is this pyriophenone. And this is currently registered with a 0-day PHI. And so we kind of close here with this 0-day PHI. At least one of the sites for the Washington raspberries was pretty close to this tolerance of 0.9, which is the same as the Canadian MRL. You know, and then all of the other MRLs for the countries are either non-existent or this Australia is pretty low. So you would want to wait some period of time, or perhaps, you know, maybe, you know, you just couldn't use this product to get into those countries. So that is the information we have there. Did you have anything else that you'd like to add? Okay. Well, just one thing I'd like to close on is that we really enjoy doing these research projects. We understand the need to balance both pest management and the ability to export. It's hugely important for the growers and processors we work with. And we look forward to adding more data. We have at least 1 more year, maybe more, we'll see. And so we look forward to sharing the final recommendations when those are available. So thank you for your attention. Do we have any questions?
One quick question. Anyone? We can come back at the end after Bev is finished if we want to ask questions at the end of the session as well. Anything real quick though?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're going to switch gears, talk about a different subject. I'm going to introduce, where's Chris? There he is. Introduce Chris Elder. Chris works for Whatcom County and is going to talk about a program that most of you probably are aware of, but we might know about, but wanted to spend some time to talk about the Purchasing and Development Rights Program, but probably a bigger picture as well, right? Yep. So Chris, take away.
All right. Well, thanks for having me. My name is Chris Elder, and I do work as a planner for Whatcom County Planning and Development Services. In my capacity with the county, I serve as a long-range planner, so I get to staff the agricultural advisory